Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Israel is warning Iran of devastating consequences if it attempts any further attacks on the Jewish state. Yet the regime in Tehran faces a potentially greater challenge from within.
A number of opposition groups exist inside Iran's own borders, and analysts are calling for the West to support their struggle for freedom. Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem.
Recently, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke directly to the Iranian people.
Yet there is one thing Khamenei's regime fears more than Israel. You know what it is? It's you, the people of Iran. That's why they spend so much time and money trying to crush your hopes and curb your dreams.
Iranian-American filmmaker Houman Halili is fueling those dreams through 18 banners posted throughout Israel, celebrating those women defying the regime.
I wanted to inspire the women of Iran to keep fighting because what they're doing takes so much courage to show their hair. And when someone gets murdered, I don't want them to be forgotten.
One school of thought is that the Islamic regime could potentially collapse without a war. One believer is Yigal Karman, founder of the Middle East Media Research Institute, or MEMRI. For more than 25 years, Karman, a former IDF intelligence officer, has helped bridge the language gap between East and West by translating multiple languages in the region through MEMRI.
No one wants war. No American President Trump will not want war. No one, we don't want anybody. Can it be done without a war? The answer is absolutely yes.
Karman explains part of that is due to Iran's multi-ethnic population.
Iran is made up of 50% almost Parsis. The other 50% are ethnic minorities which are repressed for many years by the Islamic regime. And they struggle for their freedom, for rights, for autonomy, for confederation. Some want even independence.
Despite that quest for freedom, Karman sees the West doing little to help them.
The West is not helping freedom fighters, true freedom fighters, Baluchis, Ahwazis, Kurds, and Azeris. And there are more, but smaller. These four groups, ethnic groups, seek their freedom, fight for it.
Karman stays in regular contact with many of these leaders.
We are even publishing, giving them a platform, publishing their material. Lately, we published an article by the Dr. Aref El-Kaabi, who is the leader of the Ahwazis in south of Iran, all the region of the oil. It's a beautiful article, a dream of peace and understanding and of freedom. Freedom of the control of the crazy Ayatollahs. That's the only name for them.
That's why Karman believes the West should get more involved.
They need to be helped. This will remove the Ayatollah's regime like that, if the West helped them.
Any help ending the Iranian regime would transform the Middle East. And that's a dream Netanyahu wants the Iranian people to believe.
I have no doubt that one day in a free Iran, Israelis and Iranians will build together a future of prosperity and peace.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
That's one to look forward to. It's a peace that will only come from within Iran. Can they come together to say we no longer want to live in this theocracy, the crazy Ayatollahs? But until the army turns, until the secret police turn, I don't see this becoming real. And the reason is all the public executions that have happened. If you were part of any of the protests the past few years, if you were a leader, they took you and they hanged you publicly. So they would erect these cranes and you would dangle in front of the entire town, the entire city, as an example of what happens to people who challenge the regime. But it is crazy. Imagine a culture where if you're a woman, you have to be courageous to show your hair. And if your scarf isn't tied the right way, if it's not, all your hair isn't tucked away, a teenage girl can be taken from the streets and literally beaten to death. and there be no consequences for the men who so horribly abused her. It's just unimaginable what is happening there. And the West should rise up. You see all the current critique of Israel. Well, where are the campus marches for the freedom of the women of Iran? Where is that coming from the UN? Where is that coming from the International Court of Justice? Where are those voices? And let's stand together. Freedom is the oxygen of humanity. If you live in this kind of culture, you do not have freedom. And let's pray, let's earnestly strive. Can there be freedom in Iran today? In other news, Benjamin Netanyahu had harsh words for the Biden administration in a speech to the Knesset yesterday. John Jessup has more on that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
That's right, Gordon. Speaking to Israeli lawmakers, the prime minister criticized President Biden and his advisors for what he called faulty judgment and policies in Israel's war against Iran's proxies, including trying to stop Israel from carrying out an offensive against Hamas in the southern Gaza city of Rafah.
If you go in, you will be alone. He also said that he would stop arms shipments that were important to us, and he did so. Several days later, Blinken appeared and repeated the same things, and I told him,
if we have to, we will fight with our fingernails.
The prime minister delivered that last line in English as he said it to Secretary Blinken. In a speech, Netanyahu also said he and President-elect Donald Trump see eye to eye on the threat of Iran. He also confirmed that Israel hit a specific component of Iran's nuclear program in its attack on Iran last month. Meanwhile, Hezbollah is said to be responding favorably to a U.S. ceasefire proposal. However, as U.S. envoy Amos Hochstein arrived in Beirut for talks this morning, the terror group launched more missiles at central Israel.